of 45 minutes. And for all the participants has the opportunity to raise the question by the put question in feature from raise hand or chat box. Before we start the session, please allow me to read a curriculum vitae Prof. Sunita Aberjain. Prof. Sunita Aberjain is Associate Professor, School of Law, Christ University, Bengaluru, hold a doctoral degree in law from NLSIU Bengaluru, is the coordinator from the LLM program of the Christ University Bengaluru. She holds an LLB and LLM degree from Bangalore University and has specialized in corporate and commercial law and had secured second rank in university for her BA LLB program. She also completed her Master of Human Rights from Pondicherry University and postgraduate diploma in cyber law from Nalsar, Hyderabad. Has also completed her UGC NET examination. She also have international has taught many courses ranging from international trade law, center state relation, constitutional governance, media law, international law, and law of the contract, and also human rights, property law, amongst others. She has numerous publications to her credit in from chapters and research article in reputed journals and books. He has a resource person and has a chair and presented paper at a national and international seminar conference. Hello, Prof. Sunita. Hello, Professor. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. Today even we'll deliver about a lecture about the WTO agreement on application of sanitary and phytosanitary measure. Maybe without further ado, we would to Professor Sunita to deliver the lecture for 45 minutes. Prof. Sunita, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Can you please share my PPTs? So at the outset, let me thank the organizers, Dr. Idris and Dean of University of Vajrajan, Dr. Preeta Amalia, Dr. Helita, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this public lecture series. It is I'm very excited and glad to be a part of this program. So I selected the topic agreement on sanitary as well as phytosanitary measures so that you can get an insight on or an overview of this particular agreement. Can you please share my PPT so that I can start my lecture?
Yes, please.
Can I share it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You will, sorry, to help Ibu Helita. Okay.
Yeah. Is it visible? Thank you. I'll make it full screen. 1 minute. Please hold on. Yeah.
You can make,
yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So I will be speaking about the WTO agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So I'll be giving you a brief overview of this particular agreement. As you all know, that WTO is one of the most important international organizations which governs international trade. Okay, so we when the WTO was formed, we had the Marrakesh Agreement, which was one of the most important treaties at the international level. In this Marrakesh Agreement, basically you have various annexes. And in one of the annexes, you have this agreement on sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. I'll be going according to this. The flow of my presentation will be accordingly. First of all, I'll be giving you an introduction to the SPS agreement or the agreement on sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. Then I'll be moving to the provisions which are there under this particular agreement, and I'll be giving you a brief overview of the Indian perspective. Okay. So let me move first to the agreement on sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. First of all, we need to understand that sanitary and phytosanitary measures have become very important in today's world. Okay, there are a lot of issues that have assumed significance in the international trade. And there are various factors which are responsible for this particular significance to this phytosanitary as well as the sanitary measures. The first important factor that we need to consider in this regard is the increase in trade. As you all know that we have opened up our economies, especially with globalization, liberalization and privatization. Okay, so because of this, there's a lot of international trade happening between the countries of the world. And due to this also, the issues relating to sanitary as well as phytosanitary measures have gained significance among member countries. Further, because there is an enhanced scientific understanding, we have various technological know-hows and scientific measures can be taken by the member countries. And this also has further facilitated or contributed to the international trading regime. In this context, again, the sanitary and phytosanitary measures have issued importance. Further, we also know that there's a lot of public awareness amongst people. People have become more aware with regard to the health, their health, whether be it their animal health or be it their plant health or it may be the human health. Okay, so because people have become more aware of these things, they have also again raised issues with regard to the food safety, animal safety, plant health, etc. Okay. I hope you're following. Am I slow and am I comprehensible to all of you? Okay, thank you. So we'll just move to the negotiating history or the history behind the agreement on sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. So first important milestone with regard to the negotiation of this agreement was the Punta del Este Declaration. This was basically in the year 1986, wherein the member countries or the countries of the world felt that, okay, we need to give importance to market access, direct as well as indirect subsidies, and sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. With regard to the latter, that is the sanitary as well as phytosanitary measures, during the Punta del Este Declaration, the negotiators basically discussed or they sought to develop an multilateral trading system with regard to the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. They spoke about harmonization. They said that, okay, we need to harmonize our domestic laws in accordance with the international standards. Further, they spoke about simplification and elimination of restrictions that lack scientific basis. And also that was the most important aspect that they considered during the Punta del Este Declaration. The next milestone in the negotiating history was in 1988, wherein the midterm review of the Uruguay round, they discussed with regard to international harmonization. They said that we need to have harmonization at the international level with regard to the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. Further, we had the working group on the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures, wherein a draft text was produced in November 1990. In December 1991, the Dunkel draft was issued. Now, this was a proposal for the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measure. And the final text of the agreement was approved at the end of the Uruguay round of negotiation. As you all know, that there were various rounds of negotiation with regard to the establishing of the WTO. We had the Uruguay round, which was one of the most important rounds of negotiation at the international level. So during the Uruguay round, the final text of this agreement was approved. So you have also, I think all of you know about the Marrakesh Agreement. Which is one of the most important treaties which has been signed at the WTO level. And this Marrakesh Agreement basically established the WTO. And you have, I told you that under the Marrakesh Agreement, there are various agreements which are a part of the Marrakesh Agreement. In Annex 1B, you can find all those agreements, like you have the agreement on technical barriers to trade, you have agreement on sanitary as well as phytosanitary measures. So various agreements are there under the Marrakesh Agreement. Okay, so sanitary and phytosanitary measures falls within the Marrakesh Agreement. And once the members have become a part of the WTO, it is binding on the member countries that they need to basically follow the agreements which they have agreed upon, or whatever terms and conditions are laid down in this agreement. It becomes important for the member countries that they need to follow, or it has a binding effect on the member countries. But if you look into the plurilateral agreement, it is not binding on all the member countries of the WTO, but it is only binding on the members who have become a party to the agreement. Okay, so there are two plurilateral agreements which are there. One is on the aircraft, and the second one is with regard to the government procurement, which is a part of the Marrakesh Agreement. Now, I'll just give you an introduction to the SPS agreement, or the agreement on sanitary as well as phytosanitary measures. And these are the brief facts with regard to this particular agreement. It entered into force with the establishment of the World Trade Organization on 1st January 1995. The main aim or the purpose of this agreement is threefold. One thing is with regard to the food safety. The second is with regard to animal safety and plant health regulations. Now, when you look into the agreement or the structure of the agreement, you can find that there are 14 articles in this particular agreement, and it contains the rights, the obligations that the WTO members have agreed to with regard to the protection of food safety, animal health, as well as the plant health. There are 3 annexes to this particular agreement, giving definitions of various terms and also elaborating on certain obligations in the body of the SPS agreement. So that is the structure in which this agreement on sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measure is basically made. Now, we also need to understand that the main goal or the purpose of this agreement is basically to prevent domestic SPS measures that they should not have any negative effect on the international trade. As you all know that one of the goal or the aim or the purpose of WTO is to, reduce the tariff barriers. Member countries need to facilitate the trading between one country to another. So most of the countries of the world felt that, okay, we need to basically reduce barriers. We need to facilitate this international trade by reduction in these barriers. And we also have 2 types of barriers, as you understand. We have the tariff barriers as well as the non-tariff barriers. Now, tariff barriers can be in the form of duties, it may be in the taxes, it may be levies. So there are different ways in which tariff barriers can operate. With regard to the non-tariff barriers, it can be in the form of quotas, it can be in the form of regulations, it may be in the form of technical and administrative regulations, consular formalities, trading blocks. So various, types of non-tariff barriers are in place, and sanitary and phytosanitary regulations and certification fall within the purview of the non-tariff barriers. Okay, so basically the WTO members have agreed that they are going to reduce, whether it is a tariff barrier or a non-tariff barrier, there must be a reduction of this. so that there will be a facilitation of international trade or movement of goods from one country to another, as well as these services. Okay, and it is to prevent it from being misused for protectionist measures, because we are speaking about opening up the economy. So one country should not use these measures in order to basically, have a protectionist type of a regime. So that is the main purpose or goal behind the SPS agreement. And also we need to understand the SPS agreement basically applies to all the measures that may affect the international trade, whether it is directly or indirectly. If it is affecting international trade, then the SPS agreement is applicable to the member countries. But however, when you look into the SPS agreement, you can see that it does not establish any substantive measures. It just provides a general procedural requirement that has to be followed by member countries, and also to see that the SPS measures are not a justified barrier to the trade. It should not operate as a barrier to the trade. So these are the things that the SPS measures or the countries need to take into consideration when they are basically entering or having these SPS measures in place. We also need to understand that the SPS measures are of threefold, as I already spoke to you. So it may be with regard to the food safety standards, regulations, guidelines, which are in place. And also we have with regard to the plant health, the animal health as well. Okay, and with regard to food safety, we have an important international organization in place. This organization is called as the Codex Alimentarius Commission, and we also have plant health. With regard to that, we have an international plant protection convention in place. And with regard to the animal life, we have the Office of International Epizootics in place. Anyhow, I'll be giving you a little bit more information about all these international sister institutions which are there at the WTO level for the purpose of regulating or making standards or having the guidelines in place with regard to the SPS measures, be it the sanitary or the phytosanitary measures. The SPS measures can take various forms. So it may be with regard to the inspection of your products. It may be permission to use only certain additives in food or contaminants which are there. Basically, the designation of disease-free areas, determination of maximum level of pesticides, then import bans, quarantine requirement. So these are the various forms in which the SPS measures can be made. We also need to understand that the SPS measures may be sanitary or phytosanitary. Now, when we talk about the sanitary measures, it is usually related to the human as well as the animal health. And the phytosanitary measures is basically with regard to the plant health. So we need to understand that SPS measures have both sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. And sanitary is basically with human and animal health, and phytosanitary is with regard to the plant health. And in the agreement on the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures, we have the definition given with regard to what is meant by a SPS measure. Okay, it is there in Annex 1A of the agreement, wherein you can find the definition of the SPS measure. Now, when you look into the definition of SPS measure, it says that an SPS measure is taken to protect human or animal life. Okay, and it may be with regard to the additives, it may be with regard to the contaminants, toxics, or disease-causing organisms which are there in food, or it may be in beverages or feedstuffs, etc. Or it can also be measures which are taken for the human life, basically plant or animal carried diseases, or it may be animal or plant life wherein pests, disease or disease-causing organisms are there. Or with regard to a country, it may be the damage which may be caused to the country by the entry, establishment, or the spread of pests. So this is the definition which you can find in the SPS agreement with regard to the definition of what you mean by an SPS measure. Now, one more thing we need to understand is the basic rights and obligation of member countries. So the WTO agreement basically envisages a few basic rights and obligations which are imposed on member countries. First and foremost important thing is that whenever country takes or places or has an SPS measure in place, it must be based on scientific principles, and it cannot be maintained under the SPS agreement if it is without sufficient scientific evidence. So it becomes important for member countries to follow the scientific assessment of risk as well, and they have to apply these regulations only to the extent that necessary for the protection of their animal, human, plant life, and it should not be used in an arbitrary or unjustifiable manner, and it should not discriminate between countries where identical or similar conditions prevail. So these are some of the basic rights and obligations which you can find under the agreement on the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. I'll repeat, the basic obligations are with regard to the SPS agreement that it must be based on scientific principles. There must be a scientific assessment of risk. And next thing is that you need to apply these regulations to the extent it is necessary for the protection of your human, animal, or plant or the health. And also you should not use it in an arbitrary or an unjustifiable manner. And you should not discriminate between member countries wherever the identical or similar conditions prevail amongst the countries. Okay. So now we just move to the scope of the application of the SPS agreement. So basically applies to any measure regardless of the form. So it may be rules, it may be regulations, it may be laws, it may be standards in place, and it is basically for the protection of your consumer and animals for food, and from food, or it may be for feed-borne risk, or it may be to protect your consumers, animals, and plants from pests or disease-related risk. You can find all these aspects under the SPS Annex A, Para 1B, and also SPS Annex A, Para 1A, C, and B. Okay, so you can find the text of the SPS agreement on the WTO website. So all of you might be aware, when you log into www.wto.org, you can find that basically there are various agreements which are there, and the text of the agreement can be downloaded from the website of the WTO. Okay, so when you look into the text of WTO, you can see that the text of the agreement on sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. You can find the annexes as well, which are a part of the agreement. Now, we also need to understand that there are certain central principles of SPS agreement. One thing is the harmonization, that is under Article 3 of the agreement. For the next is equivalence principle, and then we have the appropriate level of protection under Article 5. Then risk assessment also comes under Article 5, and we also have regional conditions under Article 6 of the agreement, and transparency provisions under Article 7 of the agreement. Now, first thing, let us discuss what is meant by this harmonization. So Article 3 of the agreement basically speaks about harmonization. Now, what it means is that member countries, whoever has the domestic measures in place with regard to SPS, they need to harmonize or bring it in accordance with the international standards. Now, international standards, guidelines, and recommendations are basically set up by the international bodies. And I have discussed the international bodies which are in place for the purpose of these standardization. Like I told you that there is the Office of Epizootics, or it may be the Codex Alimentarius Commission, etc. So these international bodies are standard setting bodies. These are the three bodies that I was speaking about. we have the Codex Alimentarius Commission, then we have the International Office of Epizootics, and we have the International Plant Protection Convention. Now, Codex Alimentarius Commission is basically about food safety, and International Office of Epizootics deals with animal health, and International Plant Protection Convention basically deals with the plant health. So these are the main important bodies which are there at the international level for the purpose of bringing about this harmonization or standardization of the SPS measures. Now, I'll just give you a brief insight with regard to what is this Codex Alimentarius Commission. So basically, it is a body of Joint Food Standards Program of the, Food and Agricultural Organization and the WTO, and it also develops and encourages basically the implementation of standards, or it may be the codes of practice, or it may be the guidelines and the recommendations. Okay, and it also covers various aspects of food safety. It includes, it's not only the food safety, but also the process which wherein the food has been made. It also includes the handling. It may be also the transportations, various, whatever stages are there with regard to the food. At all these stages, basically, it covers the aspects relating to the food safety. And it also deals with, or it basically focuses on the protection of health, and also to ensure fair practices when it comes to the food trade. So I told you that there should not be any discrimination. They have to basically use these SPS measures for, it should not basically discriminate the SPS measures with regard to the food trade, and it has developed various aspects of food safety as well as the quality. So this is the main important role of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. Basically, it looks into or sets up the standards, it sets up the guidelines, it sets up the codes of practice amongst the member countries. Okay, then we have the next important body in place. This is called as the World Organization of Animal Health. Now, this was formed by an international agreement with 28 member countries, and basically the main purpose of this particular body is to ensure transparency in the global animal disease, or it may be publishing, basically with regard to the publication of the health standards. So if you look into the SPS agreement also, it speaks about the transparency aspect, that member countries basically need to be transparent with regard to the SPS measures that they have in place, okay? And they have to notify those measures on their website, and also they need to establish inquiry points with regard to the SPS measures that they have in place. So basically at the international level, what they speak about is the, transparency aspect with regard to the health standards, be it with regard to the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. And this basically helps in improving the safety of food or basically of animal origin. And it also promotes animal welfare through scientific or science-based approach. So that is the main purpose or the role of this WTO Organization for Animal Health. Okay, also known as the Office of International Epizootics. Okay, then we have the next international body in place. This is called as the International Plant Protection Convention. Now, this again, this convention is very important because it's a legally binding treaty between member countries, and it speaks about the plant health, and it is administered by the Food and Agricultural Organization, and it is implemented through the cooperation between the member governments as well as the regional plant protection organizations. This was just a gist of the overview with regard to the international standard setting bodies. And when you look into the work of this International Plant Protection Convention, they basically have various international standards for the phytosanitary measures. Like over 25 ISPMs have been published to date. And if you look into the ISPM 1, it outlines the principles for the protection of plants and application of sanitary measures in international trade. Okay, and if you look into the ISPM 5 also, it's a glossary of the phytosanitary portal. Okay. Am I clear? And you can also see that there is a full length of, the list of this international phytosanitary portal measures. If you look into this portal, you can find a list of the glossary of the phytosanitary measures. Now, one more important thing is the national SPS measures should conform to the international standards or guidelines and recommendations. And these are presumed to be in conformity with the provisions of the SPS agreement. And one that is under Article 3.2 of the agreement. Okay, and also one more important thing is that there is a right of the member countries that they can decide like what level of protection that they want for their countries. So it is not that they have to follow everything, whatever is being set up by the international bodies, but they can take their own appropriate level of protection. So it may be stricter than the international level, or it may be also weaker than the international level. However, whenever they are taking a stricter position, they need to basically explain why they have taken that particular measure, and they also need to support it with scientific evidence. There must be a scientific justification or assessment of the risk. So it is left to the member countries that they can have SPS measures, be it which is stricter or it may be weaker than the international standards. Again, that is what I was speaking about, that they basically have to fulfill these obligations with regard to the risk assessment, which is there under the Article 5 of the agreement, and also 5.8 of this article basically says that a member country can also request another member country to provide basically the reason, with the reasons why they have taken a stricter standard or why it is not in consonance with the international standards. And the importing member country has to provide explanations as to what type of standard that it has taken place. Okay, taken or put in, put in implementation at their member countries. And also when we talk about equivalence principle, that is under Article 4 of the convention, so members basically can accept other member countries' measures as equivalent as their own, but however, they have to see that it is an appropriate level of sanitary or phytosanitary protection, and they also have to give access upon request to the member countries for inspections, testing, and other relevant provisions. And they can also enter into consultations in this regard for achieving the bilateral or multilateral agreements on the recognition of equivalence principles of specified sanitary or the phytosanitary measures. Now, according to the SPS agreement, the appropriate level of protection is the level which is deemed appropriate for WTO members to protect human, animal, or plant life. And WTO members are required to apply this consistently. And I told you that it must not be arbitrary or it must not be unjustifiable, resulting in discrimination amongst member countries. The most important aspect of this agreement is the risk assessment. I told you that whenever the SPS measures is in place, they have to, have a risk assessment, and risk assessment is basically defined as the evaluation of the likelihood of entry, establishment or spread of a pest or disease within the territory of an importing WTO member, according to the SPS measure, which might be applied and of associated potential biological and economic consequence, or it is the evaluation of potential for adverse effects on human animal health arising from presence of additives, contaminants, toxins, or disease-causing organisms in food, beverages, or feedstuff. And these are also considered to be the regional conditions that SPS characteristic must be of a geographical region. So if it is of any other country, then they have to look into the regional conditions as well. Okay, and the SPS agreement requires these, WTO members that they have to adopt their SPS measures to the regional conditions from which the product originated. Okay. So I think, do I have time, ma'am? Okay. Transparency obligation is another important aspect with regard to the Article 7. So members have to provide information on their SPS measures. They have to notify changes in their SPS measures, and they are required to publish their SPS measures as well on their website. Further, they have national inquiry points. A single agency can perform both notification and inquiry functions. When you look into Article 8, it basically speaks about control, inspection, and approval procedures. So members have to observe the provisions of Annex C. If you look into the Annex C, it basically gives you what are the control, inspection, and approval procedures that can be in place for the purpose of approving the use of additives or for establishing tolerance for the contaminations in foods, beverages, or feedstuff. And they also need to ensure that their procedures are not inconsistent with the provisions of the agreement. So that is there under Article 6 as well as, Article 8, and you also have to look into the annexes. And also we have the technical assistance and special treatment. Basically, as you all know, the WTO basically tries to help the, developing countries. They can be given some technical assistance wherever required. So members can basically agree to facilitate the technical assistance to other member countries, and it can be either bilaterally or through appropriate international organization. And this can be with regard to processing technology. It may be with regard to establishment of national regulatory bodies. It may take the form of not only, technical assistance can be in the form of advice. It may be in the form of credits. It may be in the form of donations or grants, or it may be for the purpose of getting the technical expertise, training, equipment for countries so that they can comply with the sanitary as well as phytosanitary measures, because you know that every country is having their own resources and level of infrastructure. So it is important that technical assistance is given to the member countries by the developed countries to the developing countries as well as the WTO. And also you can see that where substantial investments are required in order for an exporting developing countries, members have to fulfill the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary requirements. And basically it is to maintain and expand its market access opportunities for the product, whatever is involved. And also you have Article 10 of the agreement, which deals with special and differential treatment. Whenever any country is preparing these measures, they have to take into account the special needs of the developing countries, and in particular the least developed country members. And the appropriate level of sanitary and phytosanitary measure or the protection allows for a phased introduction of these new sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. So they have also given a time frame, like they can give a time frame of 5 years or 2 years, depending on the member countries' requirements to basically bring about the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures in place. And if you look into Article 11, it basically deals with the consultation or settlement of disputes by the dispute settlement mechanism of the WTO. So whenever any dispute arises, as you all know, we have the dispute settlement mechanism at the WTO level, wherein you can have consultations, there may be panels, or there may be appellate review body and implementation and enforcement mechanism. Okay, so basically, and also the panels, wherever, technical expertise is required, they can establish a technical expert group. They can consult the experts in order to understand the technicalities of the SPS measures. And basically, it is done through the Committee on Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures, wherein all WTO members can participate in the committee, and it is a forum for consultations, and it oversees the implementation of the SPS agreement. Basically, the committee also tries to avoid whatever disputes are going to erupt between member countries. The implementation basically is on the members, that members have to have SPS measures in place, and they should not be in a sense that it acts as a technical barrier to the trade. Okay, so members are fully responsible under this particular agreement. Okay, I think I'm running a little short of time, so I'll just take you to the final provision. So basically, they are given a period of 5 years to the least developed countries, and other developing countries 2 years to bring about their SPS measures. And we have various important cases with regard to the SPS measures, like we have the EC beef hormone case, the Australia Solomon case, Japan food quarantine cases, etc., which have come up before the WTO with regard to the SPS measures, and it was with regard to the scientific risk assessment. So these are important cases on the SPS measures. And when you look into the Indian perspective, we have various legislation and institutional setup. Like we have the Ministry of Agriculture, wherein we have various laws in place like Insecticide Act, Milk and Milk Product Control Order, Meat Food Product Order. Then we also have Ministry of Rural Development, Directorate of Marketing and Inspection. We have Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and this is one of the most important enactment in place with regard to food, that is the Food Adulteration Act of 1954. And also we have Export Quality Control and Inspection Act. So various enactments are there in place, and we also have various authorities in place. Yes.
I'm so sorry, the time is up.
Yeah, thank you. I just take the 2 minutes that I cover this.
Okay.
I mean, there are 2 organizations also in place, like the Bureau of International Standards, Food and Agriculture Department. Okay, and we also basically in-house laboratories are there for the purpose of formulating procedures, standards for food processing industry, and we have Export Inspection Council as well as. And with regard to SPS barriers faced by India, we have basically in these aspects, these barriers were there. We also have some statistics. We can just have a look. That is number of STS, trading concerns which were raised at the WTO. And this is the graph which shows with regard to food safety and other aspects and plant health and animal health. Okay. So I think because we are running short of time, I'll just skip these statistics, and these are references, and these are some of the books which you can refer for SPS measures. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So if you have any questions, I'll take it up now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Sunita. It's very insightful and comprehensive lecture about the WTO agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures. We have many information about the sanitary and phytosanitary measure, and I agree with you that SPS agreement held for the human, plants, and animals, and SPS agreement also based on scientific principle, and SPS agreement aims to protect health, safety, and we well as for environmental protection. And in the screen has also joined with us Samantha Matthew for Germany. Hello, Samantha. Thank you for joining with us. Before we move to discussion session, we will take a picture, and for all participants, please on the camera. And Mr. Taufik, could you please to lead this photo session? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Halita Novianti Mukhtar. And please to our honorable participant, turn on your camera. I will take your picture through the Zoom meeting. Okay, I think from 163, maybe half of you can open your camera, please. Okay, we will begin. On my mark. Wait, there is something. Okay, on my mark, 3, 2, 1. Okay, for the next screen on my computers, on my mark, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think that's all. I will turn my baton to Ms. Halita Novianti Mokhtar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taufik. And I think the time that we have is limited. And I think Prof. Sunita have some activity after this lecture. We also move a discussion session by invite the participant to join with us with discussion session. The student can raise hand for question directly by raise hand feature or from chat box, please. Yeah, from Gregory Joshua, please, Gregory, for the question directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Halita, Ibu Prita, and good morning to Dr. Sunita. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
So my question comes out from my curiosity. So I've read the case of U.S. Venezuela gasoline case in WTO dispute settlement body. Please correct my questions if I'm wrong, because actually in U.S. gasoline case, it is related to the TBT agreement. However, there was a breach of most favored nation and or national treatment principle. And based on your presentation lately, I've seen in your presentation that one of the measures can be taken in the form of inspections of product. And therefore, there is an authority which is authorized to do the inspection for products, for example, in the member states. So how if in practice, is there any cases or actions imposed by a state in the form of sanitary or phytosanitary measure in terms of inspection, product inspection that potentially breach the most favored nation or national treatment? That is my question, Dr. Sunita. Thank you.
Basically, it may be with regard to various aspects, okay, with regard to the sanitary as well as the phytosanitary measures. So we have various, like with regard to specifically on inspection, I have come across the gasoline case, which you have already highlighted. But there are like important cases with regard to the regulations or standards which are in place. Like for example, there was a EU ban with regard to food products. So it was in India as well. So marine products, or it may be with regard to mango pulp, it was with regard to rice. So various, it is basically with regard to the standards which are in place. Like for example, even the Australian Solomon case, or if you look into the beef hormone case. So this was with regard to the various standards, but with regard to inspection aspect of it, I have come across the gasoline case. Okay, so basically the standards were whether it is meeting the risk assessment or not. So whenever you have any standard or rules or regulations in place, it has to meet up to the risk assessment. Okay, so you have to follow the scientific principles and the mechanism, whatever is provided for the assessment for the risk. Okay, and the EU has basically banned with regard to the beef. When you look into the beef hormone case, it was basically banning the beef which was treated with hormones. And later on, it was held by the appellate body that it is wrong on the part of EU, which ban was imposed. So that is with regard to the, basically most of the cases are with regard to the standards, with regard to the SPS measures. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your answers. It's very interesting. And for the information, Prof. Sunita, Indonesia has been ratified the SPS agreement by the Presidential Regulation number 28, 2014. And we move to the second question from Naufal Faiz. Please, Naufal.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your previous comprehensive explanation, Ms. Sunita. I would like to ask some questions regarding this present pandemic. So talking about SPS agreement, I think it will also be connected with health issues and also connected with COVID-19, certainly. So my questions will be first, how the COVID-19 pandemic affect the implementation of the SPS agreement, maybe in India or other countries around the world? And also, is it necessary to make some adjustment or maybe arrangement to the implementation of the SPS agreement, especially by WTO during this pandemic situation? Maybe that will be my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So as you all know that COVID-19 has affected every part of our existence. So it is not only with regard to food safety, but it is of course important that WTO make certain adjustments with regard to the health, because health is very important in the context of COVID-19. But I don't know whether WTO has taken various steps with regard to the food safety or the animal health or the plant life. What adjustment it has done, I am not sure. But according to me, or in my view, it is very important that WTO basically takes these measures in place, especially with the transmission of this COVID-19. You know that it spreads at a very fast rate, even by just a sneeze. So it is very, very important that WTO looks into this particular aspect of health-related issues. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, Professor. And I think this is the end of the discussion session of the International Public Lecture. Before we move the next agenda, we would like to request closing remark. Maybe you have something message for the student, Professor Sunita. The screen is yours for the give closing remarks.
Thank you. So I think it was a wonderful opportunity, and I felt the interaction was very fruitful. So I look forward to many more such lectures, not only from my end, but also from your end. So I will be trying to invite the faculty of the University of Padrajan, and also students can attend our session, so that it becomes a fruitful experience for both the institutions, whether it is the Christ Interview University or the University of Padrajan. So it was indeed a great opportunity, and it was a very fruitful session. Thank you. Even I would like to place on record my thanks to Dr. Preeta Amalia and Helita ma'am, as well as Dr. Idris, for taking so much of pains to invite me and organize this particular lecture. So it was really wonderful, and thank you so much for all your efforts. Thank you, students, for your patience hearing and your question and answer. So I hope I made sense, and it has been, fruitful experience for you as well. And I hope you have learned something about SPS agreement. So if you have any more questions or queries, please feel free to write to me. I had shared my email ID on my PPTs. Or you can take it from Preeta ma'am. She has my email ID. So please feel free to contact me in case of any questions or queries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for Sunita for the closing remarks. And I think we have continued the collaboration after this event, and with from International Business Law Department, very honored about the collaboration. And maybe we can have arranged another program of academic collaboration maybe. And for behalf of Dean and our head of Department Transnational Business Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, Mrs. Preeta Amalia, thank you for all support. Hopefully you can, for the Professor Sunita, hopefully you can visit us in Indonesia. And I believe the participants have the inspiration from this public lecture. And for the participant, thank you for the participation. And this event could be accessed in YouTube maybe. And looking forward to welcome you again in another event, Professor. And once again, thank you very much for Professor Sunita. Thank you for the committee and the student, and Pak Gary Gumelar and team, Pak Mursal, Pak Taufik, and other lecturers this event. Once again, thank you. I give the session for Master of Ceremony, Mr. Taufik. Thank you. Please, Mr. Taufik. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sunita, for your lecture. Your lecture is very enlightened, our student and our lecturer, of course. And thank you very much, Ms. Halita, for your contribution as a moderator today. It's very wonderful. I believe our student enjoying your role as a moderator today. And before we end this session, I will give my baton to Dr. Prita Amelia for the closing remark. And Dr. Prita, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Taufik, for the opportunity, and good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, we would like to thank you to Dr. Sunita from the Christ University. Thank you for your lecture, and of course your very comprehensive lecture about the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, Indian perspective. It is really important for us after the student get the lecture about the SPS in a general, and of course with the Indonesian perspective. Hopefully they also could compare to what extent the implementations in India. And I think there are so many cases related to Indonesia and India related to the SPS as one of the non-tariff barrier agreement under the WTO framework. And thank you, Ibu Helita, for being a moderator today. It's really interesting to have a sessions with you, of course. And also thank you for all the lecture from the Faculty of Law, and of course our Dean for all the support, and with all the support from the faculty, Pak Gary as our head of the international unit. So the collaboration between the Transnational Business Law Department and Christ University could happen today. And thank you, of course, for all the participants. Samantha, it's an honor for us to having you in this event, of course, and hopefully all the participants could enjoy these sessions and get more information from this lecture. And we are looking forward for the participant to enjoy our next event today, because today we have two international public lecture, one from Dr. Sunita from the Christ University, and on 11 a.m. Indonesian time, we have Professor Sojiro Kozuka from the Gekushin University, who will give a lecture about the harmonizations of commercial law in Japan perspective. And as an appreciations, we would like to extend the certificate from our Dean. Thank you, Dr. Sunita, for your contributions. Hopefully, they would be as a good start for our collaborations between Christ University and Faculty of Law Universitas Padjadjaran, especially transnational business law, will be committed to continue our collaborations. Our next agenda is to have a joint research and also joint publications. Thank you for all Pak Taufik as a master ceremony and a committee today. Hopefully you will enjoy our event held by the Transnational Business Law Department. My apologies if there's some inconvenience in this event. Thank you very much, Dr. Sunita, and I beg to Pak Taufik.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Prita, Dr. Sunita, Ms. Halita, and our old student. The session of this event has been ended. Thank you very much, and see you next time in the next event. Thank you very much, and very good morning.
Thank you.
Morning.
Bye. Thank you,
Thank you,
Samantha. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary
Bye.
Amalia. Hello,
Thank you, Bu Helita.
Samantha.
Ibu Eni, thank
Bu
you.
Eni, thank you very much. Ibu Laina, thank you.
Laina, Pak Pupung, thank you. Pak Taufik,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Pritaman.
thank you, Dr. Sunita.
Okay, I can leave the meeting now.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.